Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. Brian and I are here in isolation land, and so we're doing our part to keep everyone healthy out there by staying home. But we're taping some episodes from the safety of our own homes because what else are film snobs going to do in their free time? So we've been watching lots of movies, and hope you are too. This week we're going to bring you a special episode on epic films for isolation. So epic films are usually, and Brian and I looked up this definition so we could be clear, so we wouldn't argue about it. Epic films are long dramas, usually at least over 2 hours, sometimes much longer than that, usually spanning a length of time or a passage of time, and they often have, great visuals, panoramic vistas and sweeping photography, that type of thing. So think Gone with the Wind, and I mentioned that one because we're not going to be reviewing that one. So Brian and I each picked three, so for a total of 6 films that we can recommend. This is my least favorite genre of film in general. So if something's long, like over 2.5 hours, and I like it, it must be pretty darn good. That's what I say. So the first film we're going to review is my pick, and it is The Leopard from 1963, directed by Luchino Visconti. And this is an Italian film with a mostly Italian cast and Burt Lancaster, because why not? I think Burt Lancaster was in everything in the early 60s. I just recently watched like 8 of his films on Criterion Channel. They had a tribute to him, and man, he was in everything, and he played all sorts of characters, villains, heroes, and in this case, he plays an aristocrat whose family is going through tumultuous times in 1860s Italy. So yes, you have to get past the dubbing a little bit in this film, because obviously Burt Lancaster does not speak fluent Italian. So, but talk about a gorgeous film. I remember the first time I saw this was actually Bryan who recommended this to me. I believe we reviewed this years ago on the show, and I just loved it right away. And since then I've seen other Visconti films and really liked them as well, but I think this is one of his masterpieces. There's the visuals, there's the sense of his family and all the tough times they're going through as they see their fortunes change. He starts as kind of an aristocrat who has everything in the world, power, money, a close-knit family all around him, and then he watches as that all kind of goes away from him. So, Brian, what do you think about this movie?
Yeah, this is an interesting passage of time. The reason we picked, I wanted to do epic films. I know that your least favorite genre, but since everyone has a lot of time, I figured this is the best time, folks out there, to knock out these. If you haven't seen Gone with the Wind, this is the perfect time to do it. You got nothing better to do all day, just sit and watch some of these films. I remember that about this one, certainly with Burt Lancaster's performance, and I remember him having that conversation with himself as he sees his family dancing around, and he's just like, "Ugh, we've inbred too much. Our people, this passage of time has happened," and he's seeing this all kind of slip away. An era that he was a part of now, but now seeing the doors close on that in history, kind of moving on. Which is great for isolation, really, because that's kind of what we're going through right now as well. Things are kind of be a little different once we get out of this on the other end, and hopefully everyone's safe and well, but we're going to be taking some extra precautions in the future. I'm sure that's what's going to be happening. And so you get to, we'll be able to tell her, the next generation about yeah, sure, we were able to go out there and touch each other's face all the time. But
remember those days when you touched people?
Yeah. Oh.
Good old days.
Yeah. So I love this film. I remember recommending this. The Life and Times of Colonel Blimp was another one that I was really tempted to do, because Pressburger Powell would be another great opportunity to sit and watch a lot of their films, because their films always do feel epic, because they're beautifully done, and they usually tend to be a little bit longer on that. But this was a little harder to find out there. I don't know if it was available on streaming, actually, and I don't actually own this one. It was interesting. I thought it was going through, and I recently letterboxed all of my movies so I could keep track, because I gotten to the point where I've been streaming so much I don't know what I physically own anymore. So I've done that. But yeah, this is a wonderful film, being able to watch that passage of time.
It's hard to find. It is available on streaming. Yeah. It's not on any of the major services. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it, but it is on some of the less well-known services out there. I looked it up, but so I figured I would recommend it still, but it is difficult to find.
I'm assuming Canopy is probably one of them. Probably through your library is where you're going to find this movie.
You might be able to find it through Canopy or the library. It was on YouTube actually, for the paid version on YouTube. So there's another place. So yeah, great film. And I thought I've been on a Burt Lancaster kick lately, so I wanted to recommend one of his films. So
fantastic actor.
Yeah, just great. good looking and talented. It's just so unfair how some people get that. Okay, so my next one is Reds from 1981, starring and directed by Warren Beatty. And this film, he plays an American journalist named John Reed, who goes over to document the Soviet Revolution and ends up becoming a little bit of a Red himself, and comes back to America, falls in love with Louise Bryant, played by Diane Keaton, who was then his real life girlfriend. As Warren Beatty was wont to do back then, cast his real life loves. And it has this great cast. I mean, gosh, it's just one great name after other, but one of the big ones is Jack Nicholson playing Eugene O'Neill. So there's just a great cast in this, but it also has that sweeping passage of time. I think this one's clocks in at 3 hours. And I remember the first time I sat down to watch it, I thought, oh, this is going to be so boring. And I really liked it. So, and I'm not usually always like the biggest Warren Beatty fan. I mean, I like him, but it's not like he's kind of hit or miss for me. But I think he really did a great job with this. Although I heard that apparently this movie caused him to, apparently a lot of actors never wanted to work with him again. So after doing
I never actually heard that one. What's always amazing to me about this film is that it got made.
Yeah.
Here's Warren Beatty. Here is a big time movie star who had several hits in a row. In fact, for the longest time until Ishtar, he had never failed really at the box office, and was able to make them the movies that he wanted to do. I mean, there's McCabe and Miss Miller, which is like the most anti-Western Western of all time, and that he hated originally at first, and now has grown to love, of course, who wouldn't? But he got this film made. I mean, not only is it, about socialism and it's a period piece and it's going to be 3 hours long and it's going to have Eugene O'Neill in it, I mean, how you were able to sit there and pitch this film, and then he makes it and it's a hit. And then it gets a lot of Oscar nominations and it gets a lot of acclaim. And yeah, I mean, this is his apex. This is his championship season right here. And
he's lucky it was a hit because it was very expensive, I heard.
He's really good in this as well. I mean, and he's working with, Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and that amazing mustache that Jack Nicholson, if I remember correctly, has a mustache in this film that not everyone can always pull off there. So this is a really interesting, and this is definitely an Angela pick for an epic film. I knew Lawrence Arabia wasn't going to be
a journalist. I know. Yeah. I know. It's political and it's about a journalist, but still, I mean, yeah, he managed to make an American film about the Bolshevik Revolution, and it was a hit in 1981, which is kind of crazy. And it's not exactly
insane.
And it's not exactly critical. I mean, it is critical of the Reds, but it's not like a full on like, oh, they're terrible type of movie like you might expect. And it has all these intellectuals in there like Eugene O'Neill and Louise Bryant. So it's crazy. But yeah, I was just reading about it today that he apparently made his actors do 100 or more takes. And at one point, Jack Nicholson was screaming at him and just said, just tell me what you want, which surprised me because he's an actor himself that Beatty would do that.
Yeah, that is interesting. Usually with an actor's actor, they don't do that.
They're more sympathetic, but apparently no, he liked to shoot a lot of film. So okay,
so,
yours.
So recently, some of a group of our friends, we got together and we watched The Godfather. I think it was a blind spot for a couple of our friends that hadn't seen it, or it was a sequel. And so Godfather being so easy to do, I want to do Godfather 2, because this is a film that, is it one of the greatest films of all time? Yes. Is it one of the greatest sequels of all time? Yes. Is it a 4-star film? I think so, because sometimes when I watch it, I kind of go, it's like Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom. I watch it and go, that's a really cool movie. This is fantastic. It's so underrated. And other times I watch it and going to go, wow, what happened exactly there? This is a very, I chose this for an isolation film because it's very long, but it's also about some of the evil corporatization that we're starting to see now, people being exploited. And it's such a distant and cold movie. You would think of the beginning of The Godfather. Oh, by the way, it's the sequel to The Godfather, and it's a continuation story of Michael Corleone and the family. But anyway, so the opening of The Godfather, which was at a wedding, it was a family event, and it was people loving and hugging and kissing. And this one opens up with a corporate, some sort of fundraiser. God, you know what? I don't even remember. I think that's kind of the point. You have these other outsiders, these senators come in with a big check, and it's a lot of grandstanding, and everything shot from a distance. And we get to see how Michael, usually what I remembered was him in a downward spiral because he's getting away from his family. Obviously, he's having issues with his brother, which is the big crux of the film. But you also just get to see him just becoming distant, period, from everybody. Obviously, him and Kay, his wife, are having issues. And you just get to see Michael just losing his soul, literally losing his soul. And in many ways, that's how Francis Ford Coppola felt when he was making this film, because he wanted to make little pictures like The Conversation, which was released the same year, which is absolutely brilliant. also nominated for Best Picture. And this film that he was forced upon him, and he was just like, you know what, I'm gonna, you really want me to do this in a big studio? I'm gonna make you a big corporate movie, and that's what this movie is. The first film has so many amazing deaths, murders in this film. This one, they're all cold, they're distant, they're not really all that memorable. I mean, there's so many times I could sit here and just argue that this film is such a lesser one, and then it's so brilliant at the same time. It's just, we're going to watch it. We were going to watch it again because a lot of them our friends hadn't seen the third Godfather. And of course I was like, you got to see that. But I wanted to see part 2 with everybody to see how they felt. Because we did watch it together as a group. So, but everyone got to watch it together, and I wanted to see what Bryan's reaction was.
I love this movie. I actually go back and forth, and of course, it has the corporate aspect of it compared to the first one. And so
Yeah.
I go back and forth on whether I actually think 2 is a better film in some ways, which is interesting that Coppola felt forced to make it because he puts it all out there. It's the corruption of the American family in favor, it's basically money over family, which then leads to the corruption of the soul once you forget your family. And, one thing you can say about Coppola, I mean, he's no stranger to money, but he's never forgotten about his family. So I do think that's interesting, although also funny that he claims that he didn't want to make big movies because he goes on to make Apocalypse Now. I mean, I know it was quite a few years later, but still, big movie.
Another great epic that I wanted to do on the show.
But this is such a great movie, and it has De Niro in it. So you have that part which has the passage of time because it shows how things went. It goes back and shows how things started in Sicily, and so there's but it is the Pacino's. I don't want to say this is Pacino's greatest performance, but this is one of his top performances easily.
Yes. Yeah, and I love that juxtaposition. Thanks for bringing up the De Niro part. I love that because that's the heart of the movie. Because if it was just the current day stuff, this movie would have just shoved people out of the theaters and just told them to get the heck out. And so you have that first one where you get to see Don Corleone, where he's gaining his power, and it's all about family. It's all about community. You have that great juxtaposition, and it's interesting to watch a movie about a man that's coming into his prime, and along with his father, who is also coming into his prime, and they're shown at the same time, and they're just powerhouse performances all the way around. I mean, there is no bad performance. Everyone is in there just knocking it out. The thing though that I miss in this film, because it's so cold and so distant, I miss Sonny. I miss Sonny so bad in this film because in the first one, you've got Kane, the actor who played Sonny. Oh, I'm totally blanked. And James Caan, who's such a hothead, and he's shows such a huge amount of emotion. Everyone in this movie is not. Everyone's kind of subdued until he gets absolutely afraid.
Right. You need a fire sign in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything is cold and calculated in terms of what they're going to be doing. Whereas Sonny just flew off the handle, and that was his downfall. And that's what's just so amazing. And that's the only thing I would say really this film was missing, just because James Caan is so dang good in the first one. I love his performance. And so, everyone is fantastic. I mean, and everyone is in this movie. I mean, you could watch this movie and just kind of go, oh, hey, look at Danny Aiello, look at so-and-so, and they're all young and fresh-faced.
Diane Keaton.
Yes. Oh, love Diane Keaton.
2 of the films that we're reviewing there.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. So I'll move on to my next one. Of course, I could have easily done Lawrence of Arabia because it is the greatest epic, in my opinion, of all time in terms of when you think epic, you think that. You think of the sun, you think of the heat, you think of the distance, you think of all these different things. This big open vista, which while we're in isolation, that would be the thing we would want to watch, something big and open outdoors. And I said, no, I want to choose the right stuff. About a bunch of people that are training to go to the moon, so they're learning how to work in isolation in small spaces and keep in shape and keep their sanity, because that's kind of what's going on right now. As you can see, I'm bursting at the seams. I'm not supposed to move quickly because my camera's not high functioning, but I want to bust out of the screen because I'm tired of sitting in my house. This was made by Phillip Kaufman, who was on a really great role at that time after making Invasion of the Body Snatchers, working on Indiana Jones movies, and does this amazing epic with a fantastic cast. I mean, up-and-comers, Dennis Quaid, a lot of different actors that you really love to see. As the origin story of the Mercury 7 astronauts and their macho, seat-of-the-pants approach to the space program. There are so many memorable scenes in this film. I mean, this is an easy movie you can just watch bits and pieces on YouTube of your favorite scenes of them when they're doing the little blowing thing to get the little ball to go up, and they're working on their lung capacity, and it all turns into competition, and then the successes and some of the failures that some of them are having. I mean, you're just along for this roller coaster ride. It is primarily men. Unfortunately, there's not too many wives in this one because they're not up in space. That's when you show the wives. But when they're down on the ground, you're just showing them training with a bunch of dudes. No problem here. And yeah, but it's just it's a very long film, but it feels like an hour and a half.
Yeah. I'm surprised, but I remember the first time I saw this that I liked it because I'm not a big fan of space movies in general. It's like it's another, so it's like combining epic with space is probably really bad for me usually. But the performances and Philip Kaufman's very confident direction in this. Talk about a director. I was like, what happened to him? Also very out of
Yeah.
touch, not out of touch, out of character for Philip Kaufman because he was known for doing much more like kind of arty European-esque like movies with lots of nudity and stuff. I'm thinking about like things like The Unbearable Light. Did he do The Unbearable Lightness of Being?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So things like that, nude Daniel Day-Lewis and Juliette Binoche type movies. And then now it's like, hey, I'm doing this movie with all these guys in the space program, but he brings it home. I mean, I think because the characters are so compelling. That's what to me gets you through it. It's just and it's not without its critiques of the space program. So I do like that aspect as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's a really compelling movie with fantastic performances all the way along. So I haven't seen this one in a really long time. I really wish I'd had a chance to rewatch it.
One of my favorite film memories is actually getting to see this film in 70 millimeter up on the big screen at the Roger Ebert Overlook Film Festival, and that was just amazing. For those who had seen it, we were all really excited. And then,
wow.
Of course, you get to see was people who had never seen it, and after the movie, the credits rolled, and people were just a buzz, going, "Oh my gosh, how had I never seen this film?"
Getting to see things in 70 millimeter, man, do I miss that? That's just in the theater.
It didn't do well in the theater because of John Ford was running for president, and people thought it was supposed to be some commercialism that was be shown.
You mean John Glenn?
John Glenn, excuse me, John Ford. And watching too many movies, and some stupid reasons for why films aren't successful, but at least it got some acclaim, and it's now why they consider it a classic.
Yeah. So considering a film, I don't think this one also got much. I don't remember. I wasn't around then, but Once Upon a Time in America is my last pick by Sergio Leone. Great film, great epic by another Italian filmmaker. So apparently I like Italian epics the best. I don't know. That's just 2 out of 3. It just worked out that way. Actually, it was the first 3 that it came to mind, and I looked them up. They were over 2 hours. I was like, yes, I like these movies, and I can recommend them. But this stars Robert De Niro in one of his great performances, and that's saying a lot, as a gangster who returns to his old neighborhood and reflects on what's happened to him over the last 30 years as he kind of rose to power and lots of drama happened. It's got a great cast: Elizabeth McGovern, Joe Pesci. So it also brings Pesci and De Niro back together for people that are a fan of like Goodfellas or The Irishman. You should watch this. And James Woods back before he was crazy. So that's nice.
Fantastic performance, yeah.
Yeah, and he's fantastic in it. And it's got this wonderful score, of course, by Ennio Morricone. Not his best score. I still say there's a lot, but Once Upon a Time in the West is almost one of the greatest scores of all time. And Sergio Leone, just beautiful visuals. So I think that's one of the reasons I love the Italian epics so much, is this great, their visuals and their sense of character development, combining those two.
His pacing with an epic film, because he has such wide bookends, just takes the time to just tell these stories and showing people breathing and talking and eating and walking, and he's never in it. It's not a lot of flash. So today's audiences, you might have a little trouble with it.
There's not a lot of explosions in this. Yeah, it's not like a 3-hour Tarantino film, which to me is more boring these days because there's less character and there's more gunshots and things. But this film, it really takes the time to tell the story and develop the characters. And
we see them when they're younger, and they're just as compelling. A great group of young actors as well that went on to do a lot of different things, and then of course transfer into the current present actors, which are all absolutely fantastic. I love that it's a very intimate story of this friends and their group of friends, even though it's an epic, and it's it's big and broad in scope and time. And I love that about it, because you really get to feel that you really get to know each of these characters. And of course, with Godfather 2, I just talked about the very beginning. And in this film, I immediately think about the end. That last shot is so, I don't want to give anything away, but you immediately start to think, well, did certain things actually really happen? Were we just what happened there? Because where he's at and what he was doing was like, so did some of those things happen, or did they not happen, or what's going
Mhm.
on there? And I love that. It's a great look on De Niro's face, right in his prime. I mean, here he is, right where he's really has made his name. A great film, and The Good, and the Bad, and the Ugly, I think, is probably his best score.
Yes. Yeah, I just love Once Upon a Time in the West. That's just a personal favorite. But Once Upon a Time in America, also great. And of course, if you liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you maybe got some of these names from. We had Once Upon a Time in the West and Once Upon a Time in America. Tarantino is a huge fan of Sergio Leone. So if you like Tarantino films, you should be watching all of these. So that's how I'll sell it.
That's totally a given.
Is that BB?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could hear her. Yeah, he could hear my dog barking at
should
the
bring BB
passersby.
over to say hi to the audience. It will increase our ratings by at least one person.
If you notice, I was looking down. I was trying to get her to hop on my lap, but I usually have a chair here next to me that she can sit on, and I didn't do it. Oh, well, there she's going.
Oh, yeah. There's BB.
I'm assuming it's just another dog that's passing by. That's what my dog does. This is pretty much my life at this point in time. I'm watching movies, listening to the dog bark. So,
none of our animals are photo bombing us. I was waiting for my cats to come over and your dog, and we can hear your dog. We can't hear my cats.
Yeah. Okay, and if I'm watching movies with any dogs in it, then she barks at them as well. So we're going to move on to my next pick. And in the 80s, when I was growing up, a lot of epic films won Best Picture. And of all of them, I think this is the best one. And in fact, Angela, you never got to see this because I never got to, and I'll hopefully get to do it someday, is I put together a bracket of the final four brackets of all the best pictures and nominated films of the 80s to see which one would be considered the best or our favorite of our group of friends. And I had to I'm putting this on one side of the bracket, and I'm putting broadcast news on the other. So if you look at my favorite films that nominated for Best Picture in the 80s, those are two of them. Amadeus by Milos Forman. Again, Milos Forman is one of those directors like Kubrick that really didn't make a bad movie, so to speak, and has fans of each of his films. This is the story about Amadeus coming into his prime. My dog is barking. Coming into his rivalry with Salieri, played by F. Murray Abraham, who won the Academy Award in an amazing
F. Murray Abraham
performance.
is amazing, yeah.
He is so bitter. He is so mad at God and man for creating this person who comes in and just does things with ease that he works so hard to be as a composer. And Tom Hulce, one of the great, almost one-time performances in film history as Amadeus. When I watch when I go through YouTube and I look at my favorite clips of movies, it's when Amadeus first comes in and the king is playing, and he goes over and just immediately plays what Salieri had been playing by ear, hearing it one time, and then improves it. And the way he smiles and goes, "Oh, that's better." And you can see F. Murray Abraham just light up immediately, and is like, "Who is this person?" And just watching Amadeus through someone, one of his contemporaries who has nothing but absolute contempt for him, but is also an admirer and a loving of what he's doing. And the best scene, or the best scenes, one of the many best scenes in the picture, is when the king yawns during this great opera. It's an amazing opera, and he's just sitting there and he's just scales after scales. This is so amazing. This is such a beautiful film. And then the king yawned, which means it's only going to last like 3 weeks and it's going to fail. And he just loved to watch his failure. F. Murray Abraham's performance in this is it's everything.
Yeah, he's fantastic. What did happen to the guy who played Mozart? What else? Was he in anything else?
Tom Hulce was in Parenthood, and he had the son that was cool. Yeah, and he was really good in that movie, and I really liked him in that. And then he did the voice in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He did the singing that.
He's like the opposite of Mozart, who was not a one-hit wonder.
Well, I think he did a lot of.
What I remember about this movie is that high-pitched laugh that I don't know if that's based on truth or not. I don't know a lot about Mozart personally. That high-pitched, horrible, grating laugh he gave Mozart. And Mozart is a really unlikable character in this movie, which also makes it interesting because it's not that you're rooting for the villain, played by to do away with Mozart, but you're also sort of like, yeah, I can sort of see why he dislikes this guy, because it's because he's jealous because he's talented, but Mozart's played by just like a total spoiled brat, right? So he's just this like super privileged, just like whatever, I'm doing my thing, and BB.
It's like there's a squirrels playing in the front yard, probably. I don't know. Yeah, well, I don't find him that annoying. I just found him as a childhood star. He just kind of comes in. He has this own kind of world around him.
I found him super annoying.
Oh, see, I didn't. And the laugh
I'm also not a big fan of Mozart music. So.
Oh, so he's such a Anyway, so he is such. I thought that the laugh was very memorable, and he's very childish in many in a good way, and he's got such great exuberance and energy. And then you feel bad for him because then he turns to Salieri because he's struggling with his failures, quote unquote, and going to him for advice. And you're just like, oh no, why would you? This guy hates you more than anything in the world, and now you're going to him, and it's such a beautiful film. A costume drama, so of course there's a lot of great rentals in there in terms of costumes. The stage productions, of course, are just, I mean, they're Hollywood stage productions that are just absolutely beautiful. It's very funny. It's immensely dramatic. It has a great score. Apparently, everybody but Angela enjoys. And of course, it's just Milos Forman.
She's not one of my favorite composers. Give me Beethoven over Mozart. I'm just saying, if I had to pick one. It's got a lot. And another great film by Milos Forman, and we did a tribute to him not too long ago because he passed away. And he, who would have thought this is the guy who's going to do One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and then this film, because they're so different. I mean, stylistically, tonally. And I was trying to think earlier, like, what is the through line there? And one thing I thought about is
hair.
Hair.
He did hair in between, I believe, and that I can kind of see him do that.
Okay, well, there's no through line with hair on my theory, but one of the things I thought about is how Jack Nicholson's character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is kind of this impish guy that annoys the crap out of Nurse Ratched, right? Like, she just can't stand that he keeps getting away with stuff, and he's so well liked. And here you have the Mozart character in Amadeus is just like everyone fawns over him. He's really well liked. He's got the ladies, he seems to have everything just going for him. And then you have this person watching on the sidelines just seething with jealousy. So there's a little bit of a through line there, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and this one is really hard to find. I don't own it because it's always a multi-format that may not play in region, blah blah blah, and yada yada yada.
It's never been put out on Blu-ray?
Well, no, it has, but then it's been out of print. I forget exactly why. There's a reason I don't own it yet. It's because someone's just gonna. There's mercy. We're just gonna have a 4K version come out here real soon, so I can also have it digitally and have it on disc, and I'd be really really happy. But it's just I'm never quite happy with the options I've been given to own this film because this is one of those films I need to own.
Yeah. So we've recommended a lot of epics today, a lot of films that should take, which all these together, at least, well, if they were average of 2 hours each, that'd be 12 hours, but it's a lot more than that probably. So it's probably more like 36 hours of viewing straight through, right?
Oh, wow. Where did you learn math? You didn't go to Salem public schools. 3 times 6, that's 18.
18, sorry.
There you go.
I don't know where I got 12 from. Anyway, I was doing 3 times 12. Sorry. I didn't go to Salem public schools, but thank you. Maybe Phoenix just as bad. So thank you, Bryan, for doing this. This has been fun. And maybe we'll see you all in TV land or wherever you're watching us again with our little experimental isolation here thing. That's our buzzer telling us we need to get going. As always, I'd like to thank our fantastic crew wherever they are for supporting us and our wonderful sponsors. I'd like to thank Brad Wortman for making this all happen, our great volunteer. And I would like to mention we're on CCTV in Salem, KMUZ in Salem, Corvallis Access Media, and Scan in Silverton. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.